St. Paul Lutheran Church, Rockford, Illinois. This is an update for you specifically, but the world, of course, is invited to listen. Given that I'm going on at least once a day during this entire shelter-in-place thing here in Illinois. And for you, my congregation, some of you are very familiar with the work I do online. Some of you maybe are not familiar with it at all. But I've been trying to amplify the way I serve the wider church in that arena over the last few days. More than thinking locally, although locally we are thinking and talking quite a bit as I try to work with your peers, your leaders, those who serve on particular boards and or are chairs of those boards, in trying to think through what's best for the congregation in the short term, as well as let them take care of what their life needs right now. So for some of us, there's a lot less to do at the moment. For others, there's a whole lot more to do for the moment. If you are a small business owner or somebody working in an industry that's being impacted by the shutdown, it's a little crazy. And you definitely have members in the congregation and in leadership that are dealing with those kinds of struggles. So I've been trying not to push anyone too hard. And whereas many other congregations maybe are getting out information faster, what we're trying to do is make good decisions very, very carefully and not do anything that's going to disrupt the cart or topple anything else of the last year's work that we've been doing, right, to try to get into a good place. So what I want to do today is primarily encourage you with regard to this coming Sunday by explaining a little bit about what you should have heard this from your elder when you received a phone call or someone connected to that elder. You could have found this on the website already, so all of that's there. But just to put it in one more form for you, last week we had private masses, and that's kind of a funny Catholic way of saying it, but it's maybe the best term legally for us to consider this as private masses in which individual families were communed in 10-minute full divine services. They also call it a low mass, entirely spoken, very simple, mostly constructed of absolution, the creed, the Lord's Prayer, the words of institution, those kinds of things. And what we did was, it was first come, first serve last week. So as people drove up, they were met by someone in the parking lot who kept the cars parked separately, and we only served, again, one at a time in a very isolated place, which happened to be outside in order to try to meet with all the rules we believed we were being asked to meet with. We believe now we can do the exact same thing inside and not cross any barriers with the powers that be in the state of Illinois. And so this coming Sunday is the same thing. What we have is a series of 10-minute masses, 10-minute Lord's Supper services designed for individual family groups or units who come together to come and attend and wait in the car for the next one if you need to, or you can call ahead and schedule an appointment. And those who call ahead and have announced with an appointment will honor that over someone who just drove up, but you can do it either way. And in either case, I'd say bring something devotional to have with you in your car, whether it's your hymnal, whether it's a Bible, something just to foster your own thinking as a family as you prepare to come in. If you met with me last week, you know how kind of mild and humbling, really, the experience was, and the outdoors helped with that, but it's going to be just the same on the inside. So I encourage you to embrace this as a moment to reflect on what your Christianity means and the centrality of meeting together to receive the body and blood of Jesus Christ as our religion. And how do you stop that? I'm going to be putting below this video on the St. Paul Rockford website where you see this if you're a member and you are seeing this. I'm going to put a link to today's podcast. It's a bonus podcast I did with Pastor Brian Wolfmuller of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Austin, Texas, a well-known name by many, if not by you, and a good friend of mine. And in that conversation, we talk a lot about the struggle that pastors and people are having trying to figure out how to navigate these waters faithfully. And I think the tenor of that conversation is probably a little more of what you're used to hearing from me. If you've tried watching my videos the last few days, you're maybe getting a whole different side of Fisk than you're used to seeing, because when I'm at St. Paul Rockford, I definitely put on my LCMS professional face. And I don't think that I'm really taking that off, but I'm certainly adding on a few combo packs when I go online in this kind of a scenario. And many of the boundaries socially that in the LCMS we maybe have with pastors. You're never going to see your pastor, pick his nose, right? In video, at some point, a lot of those boundaries just have to fall away, especially live video. And so you just have to find the fisk underneath. It doesn't change how I'm going to preach to you at church. It doesn't change how I'm going to treat you at church. All that's going to change is your perspective on me, and maybe you'll just see a touch more of my humanity. So for what that's worth, I think that if you want to engage more online teaching during this time from me, your pastor. Again, I'm amplifying rather than just like trying to just do the sermons on Wednesday night and Sunday morning. You can get a bunch of those right now online. And again, Village Lutheran Ladue, the link is below. You can get that for Sunday morning. It's going to be great, right? It's going to be a lot like what you're used to seeing. But rather than try to just replicate what all sorts of other good, faithful churches are replicating, I'm doing more of this, right? Which I already have set up the capacity for. And what I'm going to try to do more now from today through the rest of this daily live streaming like this, I'm going to try to aim a little bit more of it at you, St. Paul Rockford, directly and intentionally, knowing that many who are watching are part of a much wider church conversation. And if you want to see that, you can go back. And I don't want to leave that behind either, but I want to pull these things together so that you locally can participate in what is happening nationally and even globally during this time of crisis in terms of daily check-ins with your pastor, actually. Your pastor. You can leave a comment on the side usually, and if I know who you are, Paul Friedrich, there's a member right there, right? I'm not going to be afraid to call you out and say thank you for watching, right? So, but Paul, I mean, I don't know if you know this or not. I would wager that 70% of our worshiping attendants have never watched any of my stuff online. They might know of it. I would wager that 40% don't even know it exists, which is stunning given that I have the phone in the pulpit to stream, right? And I put on the mic. I bet you there are people who just don't even know, which is fine. But it makes this kind of contact point now something I want to make this more, right? This can be a tool for us locally as well as nationally as a platform for the congregation and for staying in touch in crisis like this. So that's why I'm doing this way today. And I'm going to try to do it more in this venue or this direction for the coming days, especially as we ponder here what we're going to be doing in the next week. So here's what's going on in St. Paul Lutheran Church. Again, we have the services for Sunday are scheduled as last week. It's a 5-hour block of 10-minute services. I already talked about that, right? Call Sue at her cell phone number, which you can find on the website right now, and make your appointment if you would like to make an appointment. Otherwise, drive-ins are welcome. You'll be asked to wait possibly, so be ready for that. After this, the elders are trying to find a way to meet online. And so yesterday I subscribed to a professional version of a program called Zoom, which I use for podcasting in an amateur capacity, and I don't really have the money to pay for professionally. It's $15 a month or $12 if you buy a year in advance. I didn't. We're just doing it for the crisis, at least at the moment. I'm going to use it for some marriage counseling on Saturday as well. So I got that set up yesterday. The elders today are going to send email threads around trying to figure out when we can actually all be there at the same time. And my hope is by next Tuesday, we will have had another elders meeting to debrief, I hope, our experience of this next weekend and start looking ahead and asking questions about things like Palm Sunday, things like Holy Week, which in theory, all of those are open game and we can go back to church on those days. So if we can come back on Palm Sunday, we want to come back hard and loud, right? So we want to put that in place, not spin our tires with the temporary, but be ready to come back with the normal and the enduring as quickly as possible. So the elders will be meeting to talk about that and wrestle with any other pastoral care issues that may be there at the time. There certainly are challenges, and whether you have heard this from the news or not, pastors are not being allowed to visit the hospital. Pastors are not being allowed to visit nursing homes. So Pastor Cypress is keeping phone contact with our shut-ins and with those who are in sick and ill care situations. It's not every day, maybe not quite even every week, but he is endeavoring with the relationships he has with those people, which is more than you or I probably, with most of those individuals. He is endeavoring to stay in regular contact with them throughout this process so that they know the church is for them and with them and that they're not alone. So all of that, to my knowledge, is being handled. The only thing that you're probably not hearing nearly enough of is how, and this goes for whether you're at St. Paul Lutheran Rockford, St. Paul Austin, or wherever. I mean, who else have we got watching? We got Central Idaho here. We got East Texas here, right? We got Augusta, Georgia here, all saying hello in the middle of the day to me and hello to all of you. Oh, shoot. I had a reason for saying that. Where'd it go? Come back, reason. See? Can't edit that out. Oh, cruddy. It'll come back. I don't know, completely at a loss. That is the worst feeling in the entire world. It really is. Maybe not for you, but for me, when the words just go away and I'm like, and I can feel the thought. It's like right there. It's like right there. It's gone. That's like the worst feeling. And that's what you get from, I'm talking to my members who may not be used to this. You're going to get a lot more of that if you watch me in live action and all of this. So we got Dallas tuning in here as well. There was a reason I popped over to all of those, and it had to do with distinctions and areas and whatnot. But see, here's Northern Maine chiming in. What's cool, St. Paul Rockford, is we are serving this wider community, and in some ways can come back strong as a bastion of what not letting go looks like. And we really are positioned in the timeline to make that happen. I feel like there was one more piece of information, and I did not make a list. I should have made a list today. But keep tuning in, because these shows, I'm going to be aware that you're there, and they're going to be on the website, our website, stpaulrockford.org, after I do them, because I'm doing them for you. Right, I'm doing them for us. I'm doing it to make us a stronger local community, so that as we stand firm here in Rockford, and as we build on the rock that is higher than us, as we set that firm foundation for hearth and altar, this isn't going to stop that. The trajectory that we've set the last year and a half isn't going to stop that. Even if this becomes a worldwide crisis and 20% of the population dies, which is not what's going to happen. It's not what's going to happen. Even if that were to happen, we're not going to stop being the built on the rock, stand firm place where word and sacrament in Jesus, the flesh and blood of Jesus, the word infleshed as Jesus, is going to keep being the heartbeat of immortality for you. Yeah. So here we are. So I answered a couple of questions from the side here as well. Before I go, so Wildcats on the web says, you're doing anything online in replacement for that men's gathering. That's fully up to those guys. They're still trying to figure out what they're going to do. This is an event in Indianapolis that was happening was scheduled to happen in April, the week after Easter. They told me they'd let me know when they had all of that figured out and whether or not my schedule would work. So I don't know. All that kind of stuff's in the air. I've had a couple of speaking cancelizations, and it's, one of them came back and they've rescheduled in June. I just can't do it, right? It's just too late. There's other stuff in the way. So I have no idea on that one whatsoever. You got to ask them, though. They're putting information on their website. So Central Nebraska chimes in here. Michelle, good day, good afternoon. I got Vermont already. South Dakota, I see you, South Dakota. What a great state. Yeah. So it looks like it's not going to come back to me what that one other announcement was. I feel like it was in the direction of planning and elders, but keep this in mind too. For most of us, we live our life on a clock, and that clock has certain associations with it. You have patterns and habits of your daily life. And when that gets changed, right, when you have something that happens every day, and it's just gone, that's going to leave you feeling confused. I was talking with a friend the other day in a face-to-face kind of FaceTime chat, and she said, is today Wednesday? And yeah, well, when your whole schedule, your whole pattern, your whole rhythm really is thrown off, and that's happening as a society and as family units, as churches, it's going to take some time to reorient yourself. So don't feel too bad about that. My encouragement to you is, as you're reorienting, take this moment to turn the TV off and open up a Bible and turn to a Psalm. I could recommend 137. I can recommend 91. I can recommend 121. They're all pretty good, generally speaking. Turn to a Psalm and read it out loud. Read it out loud. Pray what you believe. And maybe read it 2 or 3 times. Allow yourself to ponder the meaning of the words, and so that the final time that you read it out loud, you're not just reading it, you're saying it. Consider letting that be the way you reorient in the coming days. There's all sorts of other things worldly wise that you got to deal with. And I'm not saying don't deal with that, right? Deal with that. But don't forget that this is a tremendous sharpening that's going on. The Lord is asking us to be tested. He is putting us in the fires of confusion and fear in order that our trust in Him, our belief and understanding that He is sufficient and King and reigning and will move all things for the good of His assembly, which continues to meet eternally according to His word and His promises. Well, that's something to just, hook your boat to on this one, right? And just hold on tighter. I got a super chat here from Ardith. I want to throw it out. Thank you, Ardith, North Carolina, tuning in there. I always appreciate the super chats. It's a way you can support me, along with things like Patreon. and whatnot, or buying my books without flesh. Don't forget, and members of St. Paul, do you know I put out a newsletter every single week on Monday, and it's got all sorts of stuff to help you think about your faith or to consider with your faith, along with a little bit of original writing from me. That thing, Mad Mondays is what it's called. It's just getting tuned up, and I'd love to have it printed in our bulletin, but it's not ready to go. We'd have to do it a week late. So you just know that that's there as well, and you can subscribe to that below this video in the Show More section that explains all of that kind of thing. As of yesterday, I'm told we have a 90% open rate, which is pretty good for a newsletter, but it helps when you don't always keep on people who don't open it, right? That's a little trick they teach you. You can come back. You're always welcome back. Newsletter is awesome, says Mrs. Harris. Thank you very much as well for that as well. And props to Frisbee the Hand and the Shadow Broker, the Secret Society vigilantes who make so much of that thing happen. And that's kind of what I need to go do now. Today, my hope, whether you're the world or whether you're St. Paul, my hope is to do a little thinking and writing. Most of you probably don't know this about me. You know I've published some books, but you don't know that before anything else as a human, I consider myself a writer, and I always have been. I was trying to write stories when I was a little kid. Did write them, not complete ones, really. I wrote my first science fiction novel when I was 22. It was terrible, and the second draft was just as bad. I completed it twice, and both times it was terrible. But I love writing, and I want to write. And I'm realizing that the present age of constant streaming, constant media, constant news really works against writing, because the type of thinking you have to do when you write, it can't be timed. It can't be put in a soundbite. It can't be crunched or hacked. If you're going to really write an understanding that you've grown to, you got to grow to it, and that takes some time. So I'm trying to use my priority time here as I'm rethinking these things and working with you, St. Paul, to make sure all the necessary things are done. I'm considering my service to you as a writer as one of those things as well, whether it's through Without Flesh or my previous books. We might be looking at one of those in the coming year. I'm thinking about looking at Broken for the next fall as a congregation, maybe a sermon series or whatnot. But however that goes, the work that you support and allow me to do through writing and online, you can see from those who are tuning in here, throwing even John the Sacramentarian says the newsletter is the best thing about Monday. That's high praise, John. I really appreciate that. Right. So St. Paul, we're serving the world here through the midst of this crisis. And I hope that your needs are being met. If not, please, you should have my cell phone number if you're a member. It's on the bulletin. And you should have my email address as well. And while my email will bounce back and say, if you're not a member of St. Paul, don't expect a reply from the email. If you're a member of St. Paul, then you should expect a reply from the email. I'll get back to you. Or unless you tell me I don't have to, right? Or I get back to you in another way. So with all that said, join the bandwagon, St. Paul, and I'm going to try to be more directly at you heading into this weekend, this Sunday, and the text appointed, which I'll just leave that one where it is for the moment. But we will have something on Sunday that really hits that text hard. That is a goal, absolutely, at this point. All right? So thank you all for tuning in for this time today. And I'm going to get this thing up on my church website. Look for the podcast today with Wolf Mueller. We've got a good hour today talking about all sorts of cool stuff, including the martyrdom of Commander Shepard, which is one of my favorite little imagination tricks right now. All right, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow with, what am I calling this thing? MadCoronaDaily. We will be back. I can't die that fast. Yeah. Don't wallow in the muck, and don't be afraid. The Lord reigns. What are you going to be afraid of? You're immortal now. Stand up straight. Yeah. Take heed, take courage, and rock on.